My wife handed me divorce papers at my 50th birthday party. Not in private. Not in our kitchen with the door closed. Not even in the car on the way home. She did it in front of 63 people. My mother was there. My brother and his wife. My coworkers. Our neighbors. Friends I had known since high school. And our two adult children, Lucas and Danielle, both sitting at the head table like they were waiting for a show to start. My name is Harold Finch. I spent 27 years married to a woman named Lorraine. I worked as an electrical contractor for most of my adult life. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I came home at 7 at night. I missed school plays. I missed soccer games. I missed anniversaries because a job ran late and the client would not budge. I did it all for them. I did it so Lorraine could stay home with the kids when they were young. I did it so Lucas could go to private school when he struggled with reading. I did it so Danielle could have a car at 16, a trip to Europe at 18, and a wedding at 24 that cost more than my father made in 2 years. I never complained. I never raised my voice. I just worked. And on the night of my 50th birthday, a rented hall decorated with silver balloons and a banner that said, "Happy 50th Harold," my wife stood up during my daughter's toast and said the words I will never forget. I think now is as good a time as any. She reached into her handbag. She pulled out a manila envelope, and she slid it across the table toward me like she was passing the salt. The room went quiet. I looked down at the envelope. I looked up at her face. She was not crying. She was not shaking. She looked relieved, like she had been holding her breath for years and finally let it out. I turned to my son Lucas. He did not look surprised. He did not look confused. He just stared at his phone, scrolling slowly, like this was something he had already seen coming. I turned to my daughter Danielle. She had stopped her toast mid-sentence. She glanced at her mother, then sat down, folding her notes and tucking them under her plate. Nobody defended me. Nobody asked what was happening. Nobody said, "Lorraine, what are you doing?" 63 people just watched. And in that silence, I understood something that most men do not figure out until it is far too late. I had been invisible in my own family for a very long time. But what Lorraine did not know, what my children did not know, what every single person in that room could not have possibly imagined, was that I had been preparing for this moment for over 4 years. Not preparing emotionally, preparing legally, financially, strategically. There was a safe in my home that my wife had never seen, behind a panel in my workshop that she had never once entered. And inside that safe were documents that would change everything she thought she knew about me, about our money, and about what she was entitled to. She thought she was delivering a death blow. She had no idea she had just walked into a trap she built herself. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand exactly how we got here. But before I continue, if you are new here and you enjoy stories about betrayal, patience, and quiet justice, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss how this ends. Now, let me tell you how it all started. I met Lorraine in the summer of 1996. I was 23 years old. She was 21. I had just finished my apprenticeship and started working full-time as an electrician for a company called Bradshaw & Sons in Columbus, Ohio. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest. I woke up early, I came home tired, and I deposited my paycheck every Friday like clockwork. Lorraine was working as a receptionist at a dental office 2 blocks from a job site I was assigned to. I used to walk past that office every day on my lunch break. She had dark hair, green eyes, and a smile that made me forget I had sawdust in my boots and wire burns on my hands. It took me 3 weeks to say hello. It took me another 2 weeks to ask her to dinner. And it took me 6 months to ask her to marry me. She said yes. I remember thinking I was the luckiest man in Ohio. Maybe the luckiest man in the country. Here I was, a blue-collar kid from a family that never had much, and I had just convinced the most beautiful woman I had ever seen to spend her life with me. We got married in April of 1997. Small ceremony. Her parents, my parents, few friends. We could not afford a honeymoon, so we spent the weekend at a cabin 2 hours north. I remember we grilled burgers on a rusty barbecue and slow danced on the porch to a song playing from a portable radio. I thought that was the beginning of forever. And for a while it was. The first few years were good. We were broke, but we were happy. We rented a small apartment on the east side of the city. Lorraine kept working at the dental office. I picked up overtime whenever I could. We saved every dollar we did not absolutely need to spend. By 2000, we had enough for a down payment on a house. Nothing fancy. A 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet neighborhood called Maplewood Heights. The roof needed work. The kitchen was outdated. But it was ours. Lorraine cried the day we got the keys. She hugged me in the driveway and said, "You did this, Harold. You made this happen." I believed her. I believed that she saw me, that she respected me, that she understood what I was sacrificing to build this life for us. But looking back now, I can see the cracks were already forming. They were small at first, so small I did not even recognize them as cracks. I thought they were just jokes, just offhand comments, just the kind of teasing that married couples do. But they were not. They were tests. And every time I let one slide, she pushed a little further. The first time I remember feeling truly small in my own home was in 2001. Lucas had just been born. Danielle came 2 years later. We were a family of 4 now, and the expenses had doubled overnight. Diapers, formula, doctor visits, baby furniture. I started working 6 days a week just to keep up. Lorraine had stopped working after Lucas arrived. We agreed it made sense for her to stay home with the kids while they were young. I supported that decision completely. I wanted my children to have a mother who was present, not exhausted from juggling a job and a newborn. But somewhere along the way, the gratitude disappeared. I remember coming home one evening after a 12-hour shift. I was filthy. My back ached. I had skipped lunch because we were behind schedule, and the foreman was breathing down our necks. All I wanted was a hot shower and maybe 30 minutes of silence before I passed out. Lorraine was on the phone with her sister, Patricia. I walked in through the garage, kicked off my boots, and headed for the kitchen to grab a glass of water. I did not interrupt her. I just nodded hello and kept moving. But I heard what she said. "Oh, that is just Harold. He is finally home. You know how it is. He works with his hands, so everything takes him longer." She laughed. Her sister laughed. And I stood there in the hallway, holding a glass of water, feeling like I had just been slapped. Works with his hands, so everything takes him longer. I did not say anything. I told myself she did not mean it the way it sounded. I told myself I was being too sensitive. But I remembered it. I filed it away in a place I did not even know I was keeping. The comments continued over the years. At family gatherings, Lorraine would introduce me to new people by saying, "This is Harold. He is an electrician." She would say it with a slight pause before the word electrician, like she was apologizing for it. When her college friends came to visit, she would tell stories about our early years and say things like, "We were so broke back then. Harold was just starting out, and I had no idea what I had signed up for." Everyone would laugh. I would laugh too, because what else was I supposed to do? But I noticed that she never told the other side of that story. She never mentioned that I worked double shifts so she could stay home. She never mentioned that I gave up my weekend so we could afford her sister's wedding gift, or her mother's birthday party, or the family vacation that I did not even get to attend because I had to cover a job that came up last minute. To hear Lorraine tell it, our life was something that happened to her. Something she had to endure. I was not her partner. I was her circumstance. By the time Lucas started elementary school, the dynamic had fully shifted. Lorraine controlled the household. She made the decisions about the kids, the schedule, the social calendar. I was consulted on nothing and informed of everything after the fact. "Lucas has a dentist appointment on Thursday. You need to leave work early. Danielle is doing ballet now. I already signed her up. The recital is in June. We are going to my mother's house for Thanksgiving. I already told her we would be there by noon." I do not remember ever being asked what I thought. I do not remember ever being given a choice. And the few times I pushed back, Lorraine had a way of making me feel like I was being unreasonable. "Harold, I do not have time to explain every little thing to you. I am the one managing this house while you are at work. If you want to be more involved, maybe you should be home more." That was her favorite weapon. The implication that my absence was a choice. That I preferred being at work over being with my family. that I was the one failing them. She never acknowledged that my absence was the reason the bills got paid, that my absence was the reason she had a house to manage in the first place, that every hour I spent on a job site was an hour I spent for them, not for myself. But I did not argue. I did not fight. I just worked harder. There was one night in 2009 that I have never forgotten. I had just landed the biggest contract of my career, a commercial project for a new office building downtown. It was a 6-month job, and my cut would be enough to pay off the rest of our mortgage. I came home excited. I wanted to celebrate. I stopped on the way and picked up flowers and a bottle of wine. When I walked through the door, Lorraine was sitting at the kitchen table with a catalog open in front of her. She barely looked up. "I want to renovate the kitchen," she said. "Patricia just redid hers, and it looks amazing. I found a contractor who can start next month." I set the flowers on the counter. I put the wine in the refrigerator. "How much?" I asked. "$45,000. But we can finance it." I took a breath. "Lorraine, I just got some good news. I landed the Whitmore building contract. 6 months of steady work. When it is done, we will have the house paid off." She looked at me like I had said something boring. "That is great, Harold. So we can afford the kitchen then." I stood there for a long moment. Did you hear what I said? We could be debt-free. We could finally start saving for the kids' college, for retirement, for something other than just keeping up. She closed the catalog and sighed. "I heard you. You got a job. You always get jobs. That is what you do. But I have been looking at this kitchen for 15 years, and I am tired of waiting." She picked up the catalog and walked out of the room. I never mentioned the flowers. She never noticed them. That was the night I started paying closer attention. Not to her words, to her patterns, to the way she spoke about me when she thought I was not listening, to the way she treated my contributions like they were owed to her, not given by me. I did not get angry. I did not confront her. I just started watching and waiting because I had learned something important from my father before he passed. He told me once, "Harold, a man who reacts in anger gives away his power. A man who observes in silence keeps it." I did not understand what he meant when I was young. But by 2009, I understood it perfectly. Information is more powerful than confrontation. And I was about to start collecting a lot of information. His name was Derek Vaughn. I remember the first time I heard that name. It was a Tuesday evening in March of 2014. Lorraine was on the phone in the living room, laughing in a way I had not heard in years. Light, girlish, almost flirtatious. I was in the kitchen, warming up leftovers because I'd gotten home too late for dinner again. I was not trying to eavesdrop, but the house was quiet and her voice carried. "Derek, stop it. You are going to get me in trouble." More laughter. "No, I cannot do lunch tomorrow. Maybe Thursday. Let me check my schedule." I stood by the microwave, holding a plate of cold pasta, and felt something shift in my chest. It was not jealousy. Not yet. It was something closer to awareness. Like a dog that hears a sound in the distance and lifts its head to listen. When she hung up, I walked into the living room casually. "Who was that?" I asked. "Oh, just Derek," she said, not looking up from her phone. "He is a new manager at the community center. We are on the fundraiser committee together." "I did not know you joined a committee. I told you about it last month, Harold. You never listen." Maybe she had. Maybe she had not. By that point, I had learned to stop arguing about what was said and what was not said. It never ended well for me. "What is he like?" I asked. "Who, Derek?" "He is fine. Very organized. He used to work in corporate marketing before he switched to nonprofit work. He is one of those people who actually gets things done, you know." She said that last part while looking directly at me. I let it go. But I did not forget. Over the next few months, Derek Vaughn became a regular feature in Lorraine's vocabulary. Derek thinks the silent auction should have a travel theme this year. Derek said I have a natural talent for event planning. Derek brought coffee for everyone at the meeting today. He remembered that I like mine with oat milk. Is that not thoughtful? At first, I told myself it was nothing. Lorraine had always been social. She liked being involved in things. She liked feeling important. The community center gave her an outlet, and Derek was simply part of that world. But then the pattern started to change. She began paying more attention to her appearance. New clothes, new haircuts. She started going to the gym 3 times a week, something she had not done since before the kids were born. I just want to feel good about myself, she said when I noticed. Is that a crime? I said nothing. But I noticed. She started guarding her phone. She used to leave it on the kitchen counter, face up, without a second thought. Now it was always in her pocket. Always face down. Always on silent. One night, I woke up at 2 in the morning and found her side of the bed empty. I walked downstairs and saw the glow of her phone screen in the dark living room. She was texting someone and smiling. When she saw me, she jumped. Harold, you scared me. Who are you texting at 2 in the morning? It is just the group chat for the fundraiser. We are finalizing some details. At 2 in the morning, Derek is a night owl. He sends updates whenever he thinks of them. Go back to bed. I went back to bed, but I did not sleep. The first time I saw Derek Vaughn in person was at the community center's annual gala in September of 2014. Lorraine had insisted I attend. She said it would look bad if her husband was not there to support her work. I rented a suit. I showed up with a smile. I shook hands with people whose names I forgot immediately. And then I saw him. He was tall, over 6 feet, broad shoulders, full head of silver hair, perfectly styled. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. He had one of those faces that looked like it had never known a hard day of labor. Smooth, confident, polished. He was everything I was not. Lorraine walked over to him the moment we entered the room. She touched his arm. She laughed at something he said. She introduced me almost as an afterthought. Derek, this is my husband, Harold. He extended his hand. His grip was firm but brief, like he was already looking past me. Harold, good to finally meet you. Lorraine talks about you all the time. Does she? I said. Oh, absolutely. She says you work in construction or something. Electrical contracting. Right. Tough work. I admire guys who can do that. I can barely change a light bulb. He laughed. Lorraine laughed. A few people nearby laughed. I smiled and excused myself to get a drink. I spent the rest of the evening watching them from across the room. The way she leaned into him when he spoke. The way she touched his shoulder when she made a point. The way she looked at him like he was the most interesting person in the building. She used to look at me like that. 20 years ago, she used to look at me exactly like that. After the gala, I made a decision. I was not going to confront her. I was not going to accuse her. I was not going to give her the satisfaction of calling me jealous or paranoid or controlling. I was going to gather evidence. Because if this was what I thought it was, I needed to be ready. I needed to protect myself. And I needed to do it without her ever knowing. The next week, I called a lawyer. His name was Victor Benson. He was a divorce attorney with 32 years of experience. His office was on the other side of the city, far enough from our neighborhood that no one would see my truck in the parking lot. I sat across from him and told him everything. The comments, the disrespect, the sudden changes in behavior. The man named Derek. Victor listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. Harold, I'm going to be honest with you. What you have described is concerning, but it is not proof of anything. Suspicion is not evidence. If you want to protect yourself in a divorce, you need documentation. What kind of documentation? Financial records, communication logs, evidence of infidelity if it exists. And most importantly, you need to understand exactly what assets are in your name and what assets are in hers. Everything is in both our names. The house, the cars, the savings account. Victor shook his head slowly. That is your first mistake. If she files for divorce tomorrow, she's entitled to half of everything. Maybe more, depending on how the court views her contributions as a homemaker. I felt my stomach drop. So what do? Victor leaned forward. You start separating what you can. Quietly. Legally. You open accounts she does not know about. You document every dollar you earn and every dollar she spends. You keep records of her behavior, her absences, her associations. And you do all of this without changing your daily routine one bit. He paused. Can you do that, Harold? Can you play the long game? I thought about every dismissive comment, every eye roll, every time she made me feel like a stranger in my own home. Yes, I said, I can do that. Good. Then let us get started. Over the next 4 years, I became a different man. On the surface, nothing changed. I still woke up at 5. I still worked long hours. I still came home tired and said little. I still let Lorraine make the decisions and control the household. But underneath, everything was different. I opened a separate bank account at a credit union across town. Every month, I deposited a portion of my income into that account. Not enough to raise suspicion, just enough to build a cushion. I started keeping a journal. Not a diary of my feelings. A log, dates, times, observations, every late-night phone call, every unexplained absence, every time she mentioned Derek's name. I photographed financial documents, bank statements, credit card bills, tax returns. I made copies of everything and stored them in a fireproof safe I installed in my workshop behind a false panel. Lorraine never went into my workshop. She said it smelled like sawdust and oil. She said it was depressing. She had not set foot in there in over a decade. It was the perfect hiding place. I also started paying attention to her spending. And what I found made my blood run cold. In 2015 alone, she spent over $18,000 on clothing, salon visits, and what she called personal wellness. In 2016, that number jumped to $23,000. By 2017, she was spending nearly $30,000 a year on herself. Meanwhile, I was wearing the same work boots I had bought in 2010. But I did not confront her. I did not question her. I just documented everything. And I waited. The affair became undeniable in the spring of 2017. I had installed a small GPS tracker in her car. Nothing illegal. The car was in my name. I had every right to know where my property was located. For 3 months, her patterns were normal. Grocery store, gym, community center, her mother's house. Then one Thursday afternoon, the tracker showed her car parked at an address I did not recognize. A residential street on the west side of the city. She was there for 4 hours. I drove past the address that weekend. It was a townhouse. Clean, modern, expensive looking. I searched the property records online. The owner was Derek Vaughn. My hands were shaking when I read his name on the screen. But I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not drive to that townhouse and pound on the door. I printed the property record. I added it to the file. And I went back to work on Monday like nothing had happened. Because confrontation would only give her warning. And I was not ready to show my hand. Not yet. I need to tell you about my children. Lucas was born in 2001. Danielle came along in 2003. From the moment they entered this world, I loved them more than I ever thought possible. I would have walked through fire for them. I would have given them my last breath without hesitation. But somewhere along the way, I lost them. Not physically. They still lived under my roof until they were grown. They still sat across from me at the dinner table. They still called me Dad. But emotionally, they belonged to their mother. Lorraine was the center of their universe. She was the one who drove them to school. She was the one who helped with homework. She was the one who attended every parent-teacher conference, every recital, every game. I was the man who paid for everything but showed up for nothing. That was the story she told them. And over time, they believed it. I remember a conversation I had with Lucas when he was 16 years old. He needed money for a school trip to Washington, D.C. $350 for transportation, lodging, and meals. Lorraine told him to ask me. He came into the living room where I was reading the newspaper after a long shift. He stood in the doorway with his hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. Dad, I need money for the DC trip. How much? $350. I reached for my wallet without hesitation. I pulled out $400 bills and handed them to him. Keep the extra. Get yourself something nice while you are there. He took the money and nodded. No thank you. No smile. Just a nod. He turned to leave, and I said, Lucas, are you excited about the trip? He shrugged. I guess. What are you most looking forward to seeing? He paused, like the question annoyed him. I do not know, Dad. The monuments or whatever. Mom already asked me all this. I'm just trying to talk to you, son. He looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was something closer to pity. Dad, you do not have to try so hard. I know you are busy. It is fine. And he walked away. I sat there holding the newspaper, but I was not reading anymore. I was thinking about all the baseball games I missed. All the school plays I could not attend. All the Saturday mornings I spent on job sites instead of throwing a football in the backyard. I had sacrificed my presence for their provision, and they had been taught to see only the absence. Danielle was different from Lucas in many ways. She was softer, more emotional. She used to climb into my lap when she was little and ask me to tell her stories about the houses I worked on. Tell me about the one with the big staircase, Daddy. Tell me about the one with the swimming pool. Tell me about the one where you met the movie star. I made up half of those stories just to see her eyes light up. But as she got older, Lorraine pulled her closer. They became a unit. They went shopping together. They got their nails done together. They whispered in the kitchen and stopped talking when I walked in. By the time Danielle was in high school, she had adopted her mother's tone. Dad, you would not understand. It is a girl thing. Dad, why are you asking? Mom already handled it. Dad, can you just sign the check? I do not need a lecture. I never lectured her. I never criticized her. I just wanted to be part of her life. But I had been edited out of the story. The moment I knew I had truly lost my children was in 2018. Danielle was getting married. She was 24 years old. The groom was a young man named Terrence whom she had met in college. He was polite enough, came from a good family. I had no objections to the marriage. What I objected to was being treated like a guest at my own daughter's wedding. Lorraine planned the entire event. She chose the venue. She chose the caterer. She chose the flowers, the music, the color scheme, everything. I was not consulted once. My only role was to pay for it. And pay I did. $62,000. That was the final number. Venue rental. Catering for 200 guests. A designer wedding dress. A live band. A honeymoon in the Maldives that I was asked to contribute to as a wedding gift. I wrote the checks without complaint. I told myself it was for Danielle. It was her special day. I could give her this. But on the day of the wedding, I was barely acknowledged. During the reception, there was a slideshow. Photographs from Danielle's life, set to music. Baby pictures. School pictures. Graduation. Vacations. I counted the photos. There were 47 images in that slideshow. I appeared in 3 of them. 3. Lorraine appeared in 31. After the slideshow, the maid of honor gave a toast. She talked about Danielle's strength, her beauty, her kindness. She thanked Lorraine for being the most amazing mother and role model. She did not mention me. Then the best man gave a toast. He talked about Terrence and Danielle's love story. He made a joke about fathers giving away their daughters. He did not mention me either. When it was time for the father-daughter dance, Danielle walked over to me with a polite smile. Ready, Dad? I have been waiting for this moment your whole life, I said. We danced. She looked over my shoulder the entire time. When the song ended, she hugged me quickly and said, Thanks, Dad. Then she walked away to take photos with her mother. I drove home from that wedding in silence. Lorraine had stayed behind to help with the cleanup. The house was empty when I arrived. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat in the dark living room for a long time. I thought about the last 20 years, the overtime, the missed moments, the sacrifices I made so my family could have a life I never had growing up. And I realized something that broke my heart and hardened it at the same time. They did not see me as a father. They saw me as a function, a provider, a signature on a check. Lorraine had spent 2 decades teaching them that I was not worth knowing, that I was boring, that I was simple, that I was there to fund their lives, not to be part of them. And she had succeeded. After Danielle's wedding, I stopped trying. I did not stop loving my children. That would be impossible. But I stopped reaching out. I stopped asking about their lives. I stopped pretending that we had a relationship beyond financial transactions. Lucas had graduated college and moved to Chicago. He called once a month, usually when he needed something. A co-signer for an apartment lease. Money for a security deposit. Advice on his taxes that I would give and he would ignore. Danielle was starting her married life with Terrence. They bought a house 30 minutes away. I was not invited to see it until 6 months after they moved in, and only because Lorraine wanted to bring a housewarming gift. I walked through their new home and said the right things. Nice kitchen. Beautiful backyard. You two have done well for yourselves. Danielle smiled at her mother. Thanks, Mom. We could not have done it without you. She did not look at me when she said it. During these final years, Lorraine became bolder with Derek. She stopped hiding her phone. She stopped making excuses for her absences. She started mentioning his name openly, casually, like he was just another friend. Derek thinks we should consider solar panels. He knows a guy who can get us a deal. Derek recommended a new restaurant downtown. We should try it sometime. Derek is going through a rough patch. His girlfriend broke up with him. I feel so bad for him. That last comment made me pause. His girlfriend? I asked. Yes, they were together for about a year. She was not right for him, though. Too clingy. I nodded and said nothing. But inside, I was doing the math. If Derek had a girlfriend for the past year, and Lorraine was still visiting his townhouse during that time, then there was more to this story than I thought. Either Lorraine was the reason that relationship ended, or she had been the other woman all along. By 2021, I had everything I needed. 4 years of financial records showing her excessive spending. GPS logs showing hundreds of visits to Derek Vaughn's residence. Screenshots of text messages I had managed to photograph when she left her phone unlocked. A detailed timeline of her affair, cross-referenced with credit card statements showing purchases of lingerie, hotel rooms, and gifts that were never given to me. I had copies of our mortgage documents, our investment accounts, our tax returns. I knew exactly what we owned and what we owed. And I had one more thing. A postnuptial agreement that Lorraine had signed in 2008. She probably did not even remember signing it. It was during the kitchen renovation she had demanded. I told her the contractor needed both our signatures on a liability waiver. She signed without reading it, like she always did. But it was not a liability waiver. It was a postnuptial agreement stating that in the event of divorce due to infidelity, the unfaithful party would forfeit their claim to marital assets accumulated after the date of signing. Victor Benson had drafted it himself. Airtight, legal, enforceable. Lorraine had signed away her future with a pen she borrowed from me. And she had no idea. I stored everything in the safe behind a panel in my workshop. Every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence. I also stored something else. A letter. Not a legal document. Just a letter I had written to myself. A reminder of why I was doing this. A record of the pain, the disrespect, the invisibility I had endured for so long. I sealed it in an envelope and wrote on the front, "Open when it is time." I did not know when that would be, but I knew the time would come. And when it did, I would be ready. My 50th birthday fell on a Saturday in October of 2023. I did not want a party. I told Lorraine that months in advance. I said I would prefer a quiet dinner, maybe just the two of us or perhaps a small gathering with close friends. She dismissed the idea immediately. Harold, you only turned 50 once. We are celebrating properly. I have already started planning. I did not argue. By that point, I had learned that arguing with Lorraine was like arguing with the weather. It changed nothing and exhausted you in the process. So I agreed to the party. I smiled when she showed me the guest list. I nodded when she described the venue, the catering, the decorations. 63 people. A rented hall at the Grandview Country Club. A live jazz band. An open bar. A three-tier cake shaped like a toolbox because, as Lorraine put it, that is so you, Harold. I did not point out that I had not used a toolbox in years. My company had grown beyond that. But she did not know that. She still thought I was the same man with sawdust on his boots, coming home tired every night. She had no idea what I had built. The week before my birthday, I noticed something strange. Lorraine was nervous. Not excited. Nervous. She kept checking her phone. She kept making hushed phone calls in the other room. She kept asking me questions about my schedule. What time do you think you will get to the venue? Are you planning to give a speech? Have you talked to Lucas and Danielle about what they are wearing? At first, I thought she was just stressed about the party. Planning an event for 63 people is no small task. But then I noticed something else. She was meeting with Derek more frequently. 3 times in 1 week, according to the GPS tracker. Each visit lasting at least 2 hours. And she was meeting with a lawyer. I discovered this by accident. I came home early one afternoon and found a business card on the kitchen counter. The name on the card was Barbara Whitfield, family law attorney. Lorraine was not home. She must have forgotten to put it away. I took a photograph of the card and put it back exactly where I found it. That night, I did not sleep. 2 days before my birthday, I called Victor Benson. She is planning something, I said. She has been meeting with a divorce attorney. Victor was quiet for a moment. Harold, are you sure you want to proceed the way we discussed? Once you go down this road, there is no turning back. I have been on this road for 4 years, Victor. I am just waiting to reach the destination. Then let her make the first move. Whatever she is planning, let it happen. Do not react. Do not engage. Just let her show her hand. And then you show her yours. The night of my birthday arrived. I put on a charcoal suit that Lorraine had picked out for me. I drove to the Grandview Country Club in my truck, the same truck I had been driving for 12 years. Lorraine had taken her own car earlier to oversee the final preparations. When I walked into the hall, I was genuinely surprised by what I saw. Silver and black balloons everywhere. A banner that read Happy 50th Harold in elegant script. Tables covered in white linens. A jazz quartet playing soft music in the corner. And 63 people, all of them turning to look at me as I entered. For a moment, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Lorraine had planned this because she loved me. Maybe the nervousness I had seen was just the stress of wanting everything to be perfect. Maybe tonight would be the beginning of something new. I found Lorraine near the cake table. She was wearing a green dress I had never seen before. She looked beautiful. She smiled when she saw me. There he is, the man of the hour. She kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were cold. Thank you for all this, I said. It is more than I expected. You deserve it, Harold. 50 years. That is a big deal. She squeezed my hand and walked away to greet other guests. I stood there, watching her move through the crowd, and I felt the hope begin to fade. She had not looked me in the eyes. Not once. The first hour of the party was pleasant enough. I made small talk with coworkers. I shook hands with neighbors. I hugged my brother, Eugene, and his wife, Martha. I accepted compliments and well wishes from people I had known for decades. Lucas arrived late, as usual. He was wearing a suit that looked too expensive for his salary, which meant Lorraine had probably bought it for him. He shook my hand and said, "Happy birthday, Dad." Then he walked over to the bar and stayed there. Danielle arrived with Terrence. She hugged me briefly and said, "The decorations look great, do you not think?" Mom really outdid herself. She did, I agreed. Danielle smiled and went to find her mother. I noticed that neither of my children stayed by my side for more than 30 seconds. I noticed that neither of them asked me how I was doing. I noticed that neither of them seemed to care that this was supposed to be my night. Around 8:30, the band stopped playing and Lorraine took the microphone. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please? I want to say a few words about the birthday boy." The room quieted. People turned to face her. I stood near the front, holding a glass of whiskey I had barely touched. "Harold and I have been married for 27 years, she began. And in that time, I have watched him work harder than anyone I know. He has built a life for our family. He has provided for our children. He has always been steady." She paused on that last word. Steady, like it was not quite a compliment. "But tonight is not about speeches from me. Tonight is about celebrating Harold. And to do that, I want to invite his daughter, Danielle, to say a few words." The crowd applauded. Danielle walked to the microphone with a piece of paper in her hand. I felt a warmth in my chest. My daughter was going to toast me. Maybe I had misjudged everything. Maybe this night would be different. Danielle unfolded her notes and smiled at the crowd. "My dad is a man of few words," she began. "Growing up, he was always working. I used to joke that his office was the front seat of his truck, because that is where he spent most of his time." A few people chuckled. But even though he was not always around, I knew he loved us in his own way. He showed it by providing, by making sure we had everything we needed. Even if he could not be there in person, he was there in spirit. I waited for more, for something personal, for something that showed she actually knew me. But Danielle was looking at her notes, not at me. "So, happy 50th birthday, Dad. We are grateful for everything you have done. And we hope the next 50 years bring you peace and—" She stopped. She looked at her mother. Lorraine nodded. And that is when everything changed. Lorraine walked to where Danielle was standing and gently took the microphone from her hand. "Thank you, sweetheart. That was beautiful." She turned to face the crowd. Her expression had shifted. The polite hostess smile was gone. In its place was something harder, colder, determined. "I was not planning to do this tonight," she said, "but I have realized that there is never a perfect time for the truth. And Harold deserves the truth. You all deserve the truth." The room went silent. I felt my heart begin to pound. For the past 27 years, I have stood by this man. I have raised his children. I have kept his home. I have supported his career. And in return, I have been ignored, dismissed, and taken for granted. She reached into her handbag. "I have tried to make this marriage work. I have tried to be patient. But I cannot pretend anymore." She pulled out a manila envelope. "Harold, I think now is as good a time as any." She walked toward me. The crowd parted like water. She stopped in front of me and held out the envelope. "I am filing for divorce." The silence in that room was deafening. 63 people stared at me. My mother, my brother, my coworkers, my neighbors, my children. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I looked at the envelope in her hand. I looked at her face. She was not crying. She was not shaking. She looked relieved. I turned to Lucas. He was still at the bar, but he had put down his phone. He was watching, waiting, like he had known this was coming. I turned to Danielle. She was standing next to her mother, her chin raised, her arms crossed. She did not look surprised. She did not look sad. She looked like she was on Lorraine's side. Because she was. They all were. I took the envelope from Lorraine's hand. I did not open it. I did not need to. I already knew what was inside. "You planned this," I said quietly. "I planned to tell you the truth," she replied. "Finally. In front of everyone I know. You deserve to be held accountable, Harold. 4 years of neglect. 4 years of putting work before family. 4 years of being physically present but emotionally absent." I almost laughed. Emotionally absent. That was rich. coming from a woman who had been sleeping with another man for nearly a decade. But I did not say that. Not yet. I just nodded slowly. Is there anything else you want to say, Lorraine? She blinked. She had expected me to yell, to beg, to fall apart. I did none of those things. I think I have said enough, she said. Then I think it is my turn. I looked at the envelope in my hands. Then I looked at my wife. Then I looked at the 63 people standing in that room, all of them frozen in place like statues in a museum of my humiliation. I could feel their pity, their discomfort, their morbid curiosity. Poor Harold. Blindsided at his own birthday party. How embarrassing for him. But they did not know what I knew. They did not know what was coming. I took a slow breath and set the envelope down on the nearest table. I did not open it. I did not need to read the terms of my own destruction. Lorraine, I said calmly, I appreciate your honesty. I really do. It takes courage to say what you just said in front of all these people. She narrowed her eyes. She was trying to read me, trying to figure out why I was not falling apart. I'm glad you finally understand, she said carefully. Oh, I understand more than you think. I turned to face the crowd. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I know this is not the celebration any of us expected. But since my wife has decided to use this occasion for honesty, I think it is only fair that I do the same. Lorraine shifted on her feet. Harold, what are you doing? I'm doing what you asked, Lorraine. I am being honest. I paused and looked at my children. Lucas had stepped away from the bar. His phone was in his pocket now. He looked confused. Danielle was still standing next to her mother, but her arms had dropped to her sides. The confidence on her face was beginning to crack. Before I continue, I said, I want to ask my wife a question. Just one question. And I would like her to answer it honestly, in front of all these people who have known us for years. Lorraine crossed her arms. Fine. Who is Derek Vaughn? The color drained from her face. It was subtle. Most people in the room probably did not notice. But I noticed. I had been watching her for 4 years. I knew every micro-expression, every tell, every flicker of guilt she tried to hide. Derek is a friend, she said. He works at the community center. I have told you about him. You have. Many times. You have told me he is organized. You have told me he is thoughtful. You have told me he is one of those people who actually gets things done. I let the silence hang. What I am wondering, I continued, is why a friend would need you to visit his townhouse 3 times a week, sometimes for 4 hours at a time. Lorraine's mouth opened, but no words came out. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I'm also wondering, I said, why a friend would send you text messages at 2 in the morning. Messages that made you smile in the dark living room when you thought I was asleep. Danielle took a step back. Lucas whispered, what the hell? And I am especially wondering, I said, why a friend would receive lingerie purchases on his credit card. Lingerie that I certainly never saw you wear. Lorraine finally found her voice. You have been spying on me. I have been protecting myself. There is a difference. This is insane. You are trying to deflect from your own failures by attacking me with lies and they are not lies, Lorraine. And I can prove every single word. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. For the past 4 years, I said, I have kept a record of your activities. GPS logs, text message screenshots, credit card statements, hotel receipts, everything. I held up the phone so she could see the screen. October 14th, 2017. Your car was parked at 347 Westbrook Lane for 4 hours and 12 minutes. That is Derek Vaughn's residence. You told me you were at your mother's house that day. Lorraine was shaking now. November 22nd, 2018. You purchased $240 worth of lingerie from a boutique called Silk and Lace. The receipt shows it was gift-wrapped. I never received the gift. Harold, stop this. March 15th, 2020. You checked into the Marriott on 5th Street at 2 in the afternoon. You checked out at 6. Derek Vaughn's credit card was used for room service during that window. Harold, June 3rd, 2021. You sent a text message to Derek that said, and I quote, "I cannot wait to be free of him. Once this is over, we can finally be together." I lowered the phone. Is that enough, Lorraine? Or should I keep going? Because I have 4 years of evidence. I can do this all night. The room was completely silent. My mother had her hand over her mouth. My brother Eugene was staring at Lorraine with an expression of disgust I had never seen on his face. Lucas looked like he was going to be sick. Danielle looked like she wanted to disappear. Lorraine was crying now. Real tears. Not the performative kind she used when she wanted sympathy. "You do not understand," she said. "You were never there. You were always working. I was lonely, Harold. I was so lonely. So you had an affair. It was not supposed to happen. Derek was just someone who listened to me. Someone who made me feel seen. And when did listening turn into hotel rooms, Lorraine? When did feeling seen turn into planning how to leave me and take everything I had worked for?" She did not answer. She did not have to. I turned to my children. "Lucas, Danielle, I want you to hear this next part." They both looked at me with wide eyes. "Your mother told you I was a bad father. She told you I was absent. She told you I cared more about work than about you. And maybe some of that is true. I missed a lot. I know that. I will carry that regret for the rest of my life." I paused. "But I want you to understand why I was working so hard. It was not because I did not love you. It was because I loved you more than anything. Every overtime shift, every weekend job, every holiday I spent on a construction site instead of at home, it was all for you. For this family. So you could have things I never had growing up." Lucas swallowed hard. "Dad, I did not know." "Of course you did not know. Because your mother never told you. She told you I was simple. She told you I was boring. She told you my job was something to be embarrassed about." I looked at Danielle. "At your wedding, I paid $62,000 so you could have the day of your dreams. Do you remember how many photos of me were in that slideshow?" She did not answer. 3 out of 47. I counted. Danielle's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty," I said. "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the truth. The same truth your mother claims to value so much." I turned back to Lorraine. "Now, let me tell you what happens next." She wiped her eyes. "Harold, please. Can we talk about this privately?" "No. You chose to do this publicly. So we will finish it publicly." She did. "And you adapted." I nodded. Victor leaned back in his chair. "Well, regardless of how it happened, the outcome is in your favor. I've already received a call from Barbara Whitfield. She is representing Lorraine. I know. She is good. But she does not have much to work with. The postnuptial agreement is airtight. The evidence of infidelity is overwhelming. And the separate asset classification of your company is solid. So what happens now? Now we negotiate. Lorraine will try to get more than she is entitled to. That is standard. Barbara will argue emotional distress, long-term contribution to the household, things like that. But at the end of the day, the law is the law." He slid a folder across the desk. "Here is my recommended settlement offer. It is generous, given the circumstances. I suggest we lead with this and see how she responds." I opened the folder and read through the terms. Lorraine would receive the $14,000 in the joint checking account. She would keep her car, which was paid off. She would receive a one-time payment of $25,000, which Victor described as a goodwill gesture to expedite the proceedings. In exchange, she would relinquish all claims to the house, the company, my retirement accounts, and any future earnings. "This is more than the agreement requires," I said. "It is. But it accomplishes 2 things. First, it makes you look reasonable in front of a judge if this goes to court. Second, it gives Lorraine an incentive to settle quickly and quietly." I thought about it for a moment. "Add one more condition." "What is that?" "She does not contest the terms publicly. No interviews. No social media posts. No telling her side of the story to anyone who will listen." Victor raised an eyebrow. "You want a non-disparagement clause." "I want peace. I have spent 4 years preparing for this. I do not want to spend the next 4 years relitigating it in the court of public opinion." Victor nodded slowly. "I can add that. But she might not agree. Then we go to court. I have nothing to hide." 2 weeks later, I received a response from Barbara Whitfield. Lorraine rejected the offer. She was demanding half of everything: the house, the company, the retirement accounts. She claimed the post-nuptial agreement was signed under duress and should be voided. She claimed my evidence of her affair was obtained illegally and should be inadmissible. Victor called me with the news. "She is playing hardball, Harold. Barbara knows the agreement is enforceable, but she is hoping you will cave to avoid a prolonged court battle." "I will not cave. I know." That is what I told her. What happens next? We file a response disputing her claims and requesting a hearing. A judge will review the evidence and make a ruling on the validity of the post-nuptial agreement. If we win that ruling, and I believe we will, Lorraine's entire case collapses. How long will that take? 3 to 6 months, depending on the court schedule. I sighed. Then we wait. During those months of waiting, I learned something interesting about Derek Vaughn. He had disappeared. Not literally. He still lived in his townhouse. He still worked at the community center. But he had completely cut off contact with Lorraine. I found this out from an unexpected source. My daughter, Danielle. She called me 6 weeks after the birthday party. It was the first time we had spoken since that night. "Dad, can we talk?" I was sitting in my workshop when her call came in. I almost did not answer. But something in me, some stubborn remnant of fatherly hope, made me pick up the phone. "I'm listening," I said. "I am sorry for what happened at the party, for the things I said in my toast, for not being there for you." I waited. I did not know about Mom and Derek. I swear I did not. She told me you were the problem. She told me you had been emotionally checked out for years. I believed her because she is my mother, and I thought she would never lie to me. But she did. She did. Danielle's voice cracked. "I found out the truth a few weeks ago. I went to see her at Aunt Patricia's house, and she was a mess. Crying, drinking, not eating. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me everything. Everything. About Derek. About the affair. About how it started and how long it lasted. She said she thought he loved her. She thought they were going to be together after the divorce." I felt a cold satisfaction in my chest. Let me guess. He changed his mind. He broke up with her dad, right after the party. He said he did not sign up for this kind of drama. He said he never promised her anything serious. He said she misunderstood the nature of their relationship. I closed my eyes. He used her. He used her. And she threw away her entire marriage for him. I wish I could say I felt sorry for Lorraine in that moment. But I did not. I felt vindicated. I felt justified. And I felt something I had not expected to feel. Pity. Not pity for what she had lost. Pity for what she had become. A woman so desperate for attention, so hungry for validation, that she destroyed her own life chasing a man who never intended to catch her. Derek Vaughn was not a villain in a story. He was not a mastermind who seduced my wife, plotted to steal my fortune. He was just a man who saw an opportunity and took it. A bored, attractive man who enjoyed the company of a married woman without any intention of building a future with her. And Lorraine, in her loneliness and her resentment, convinced herself that his attention meant love, that his compliments meant commitment, that his whispered promises meant forever. She was wrong, and now she was alone. Danielle continued talking. "Mom is a wreck, Dad. She has been staying with Aunt Patricia, but Patricia is getting tired of her. She has no money. She has no plan. She keeps calling Derek, but he blocked her number. What do you want me to do about it, Danielle?" There was a long pause. "I do not know. I guess I just wanted you to know. And I wanted you to know that I am sorry. For everything. For taking her side. For not seeing what was right in front of me. I appreciate you saying that. Do you forgive me?" I thought about that question for a long time. "I love you, Danielle. That has never changed. But forgiveness is not something I can give you in a single phone call. It is something we have to build over time. I understand. If you want a relationship with me, I'm open to it. But it has to be real. Not just when you need something. Not just when your mother is unavailable. I need to know that you see me as your father, not just as a resource. I do, Dad. I swear I do. Then prove it. Call me next week. Not because there is a crisis. Just to talk. I will. She did. Lucas was a different story. He did not call. He did not text. He did not reach out at all for the first 3 months after the party. When he finally made contact, it was through email. Not even a personal email. A formal one, like something you would send to a business associate. Dad, I have been processing everything that happened. I am not ready to talk yet, but I wanted you to know that I am thinking about things. I hope you are well. Lucas. I read that email several times. I thought about responding with something long and heartfelt. Something that explained my side of the story. Something that reached out across the distance he had created. But I did not. I wrote back 2 sentences. Thank you for reaching out. I am here when you are ready. I meant it. But I also knew that Lucas might never be ready. He might spend the rest of his life holding on to the story his mother told him, even after she had been exposed as a liar. Some people would rather cling to a comfortable fiction than face an uncomfortable truth. I hope Lucas was not one of those people. But I had learned to stop hoping for things I could not control. 4 months after the birthday party, we finally had our day in court. The hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday morning. Victor Benson met me outside the courthouse at 8:30. He was carrying a thick folder of documents and wearing the confident expression of a man who knew he was about to win. Are you ready? He asked. I have been ready for 4 years. We walked inside together. Lorraine was already there. She was sitting at the opposite table with Barbara Whitfield. She looked thin, tired. The green dress from my birthday party had been replaced by a plain gray suit that hung loosely on her frame. She did not look at me when I entered. I did not try to catch her eye. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Harmon. She had a reputation for being fair, thorough, and completely unimpressed by emotional theatrics. In other words, she was exactly the kind of judge I wanted. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Barbara Whitfield argued that the postnuptial agreement was invalid because Lorraine did not understand what she was signing. She claimed I had deceived my wife by disguising a legal document as a contractor waiver. Victor presented evidence that the document was clearly labeled, that Lorraine had initialed every page, that she had signed in the presence of a notary who confirmed she was doing so voluntarily. Barbara argued that my evidence of the affair was obtained through illegal surveillance, that the GPS tracker violated Lorraine's privacy, that the photographs were taken without her consent. Victor pointed out that the vehicle was registered in my name, that I had every right to know the location of my own property, that the photographs were taken in public spaces where there was no reasonable expectation of privacy. Barbara made one last attempt. She argued that even if the agreement was valid, it was unconscionable, that leaving Lorraine with nothing after 27 years of marriage was cruel and punitive. Victor responded calmly, Your Honor, Mrs. Finch is not being left with nothing. She is being left with exactly what the agreement she signed entitles her to. The fact that she now regrets signing that agreement does not make it unconscionable. It makes it inconvenient. Judge Harmon listened to everything. She asked questions. She reviewed documents. She took notes. And then she made her ruling. The postnuptial agreement is valid and enforceable, she said. Mrs. Finch signed it voluntarily, with full opportunity to read and understand its contents. The fact that she chose not to read it does not invalidate her signature. Lorraine let out a small sob. Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence of infidelity presented by Mr. Finch is admissible. The methods used to obtain this evidence were lawful and do not violate any privacy statutes in this state. Barbara Whitfield's face was stone. Therefore, I'm granting Mr. Finch's petition for divorce on the grounds of adultery. The terms of the postnuptial agreement will govern the division of assets. Mrs. Finch is entitled to the contents of the joint checking account and her personal belongings. She has no claim to the marital residence, the business known as Finch Electrical Solutions, or any retirement accounts held solely in Mr. Finch's name. Judge Harmon looked at Lorraine. Mrs. Finch, I understand this is not the outcome you hoped for. But actions have consequences. You made choices, and those choices have led you here. I suggest you use this as an opportunity to reflect and rebuild. She turned to me. Mr. Finch, the court grants your divorce. I wish you well. She banged her gavel. It was over. I walked out of that courthouse a free man. Not just legally free. Spiritually free. Emotionally free. Free from 27 years of pretending. Free from a decade of watching and waiting. Free from a marriage that had stopped being a partnership long before Lorraine ever met Derek Vaughn. Victor Benson shook my hand on the courthouse steps. Congratulations, Harold. You did it. We did it, I corrected him. I could not have done this without you. You could have. You just would have done it slower and made more mistakes along the way. I laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I had allowed myself in months. What happens now? I asked. Now you go home. You rest. You'll in my office handle the paperwork. In about 6 weeks, the divorce will be finalized, and you will officially be a single man. And Lorraine, she has 30 days to vacate the marital residence. After that, you can do whatever you want with it. Sell it. Keep it. Burn it down for all I care, although I would advise against that last option. I nodded. Thank you, Victor. For everything. Thank me by living well. That is the best revenge there is. I drove home slowly that afternoon. I took the long way, through the old neighborhoods I used to work in when I was just starting out. Past the first house I ever wired by myself. Past the strip mall where I met my first commercial client. Past the diner where I used to eat breakfast every morning before a shift, back when I could not afford anything fancier than eggs and toast. I thought about the man I was back then. Young, hungry, full of hope. I thought about the man I had become. Older, wiser, full of something else. Not hope exactly. Something quieter than hope. Something more durable. Peace. I had finally found peace. When I got home, the house was empty. Lorraine had already started moving her things out. Half the closet was bare. The bathroom counter, which had always been cluttered with her creams and perfumes and makeup, was clean. The kitchen table, where we had shared thousands of meals and almost no real conversations, held a single envelope. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Harold, I do not know what to say. I am sorry does not seem like enough. I made mistakes. I made choices I cannot take back. I thought I was unhappy because of you, but now I realize I was unhappy because of me. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not even expect you to read this. But I wanted you to know that I did love you once. Maybe I still do, in some broken way. I hope you find what you are looking for. Lorraine. I read the note twice. Then I folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope, and placed it in the drawer of my desk. I did not throw it away. But I did not keep it close either. Some things are worth remembering. Not because they bring joy, but because they remind you of who you were and who you have become. The weeks that followed were strange. For the first time in almost 3 decades, I was living alone. No one to cook for. No one to clean up after. No one to answer to or argue with or avoid. Just me and the silence. At first, the silence was uncomfortable. I had spent so many years surrounded by noise, by tension, by the constant low-level hum of a marriage that was not working, that I had forgotten what quiet felt like. But slowly, I began to appreciate it. I started waking up when I wanted, not when I had to. I started eating meals I actually enjoyed, not just whatever was fastest or easiest. I started reading books I had been meaning to read for years. I started taking walks in the evening, something I had never done before, because there was always something else demanding my attention. I started living for myself. It sounds selfish when I say it like that, but after 27 years of living for other people who did not appreciate it, I think I had earned a little selfishness. About 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected visitor. I was in my workshop on a Saturday afternoon, sorting through old tools and deciding what to keep and what to donate, when I heard a knock on the side door. I opened it and found Lucas standing there. He looked different, thinner, older somehow, even though only a few months had passed. He was wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, not the expensive suit his mother used to buy him. "Dad," he said, "can we talk?" I stepped aside and let him in. We sat on two old stools in the corner of the workshop, surrounded by sawdust and the smell of motor oil. It was not a comfortable place for a conversation, but it was honest, real. The kind of place where pretense did not survive. "I owe you an apology," Lucas said. "You do not owe me anything." "I do. I owe you years of apologies. For the way I treated you. For the way I ignored you. For the way I took Mom's side without ever asking for yours. I waited. I was wrong, Dad. I was so wrong. And I do not know how to make it right." I looked at my son, this boy I had raised, this man I barely knew. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you here now after all this time?" Lucas took a deep breath. "Because I finally talked to Mom. Really talked to her. And she told me everything. About Derek. About the affair. About how long it had been going on. About how she planned to take everything from you and start a new life with him." He paused. "And about how he dumped her the moment things got complicated." I nodded slowly. "She also told me something else," Lucas continued. "She told me that you knew. For years, you knew. And you did not confront her. You did not yell or threaten or fall apart. You just quietly prepared yourself for the day when she would finally show her true colors." "That is correct. Why, Dad? Why did you not say anything? Why did you let it go on for so long?" I thought about how to answer that question. I had asked myself the same thing many times over the years. "Because I wanted to be sure," I said finally. "I did not want to accuse your mother of something based on suspicion. I did not want to blow up our family over a hunch. So I gathered evidence. I built my case. And I waited for her to make the first move. But she humiliated you. At your own birthday party. In front of everyone. She did. And you just stood there and took it. And then you destroyed her." I shook my head. "I did not destroy her, Lucas. I revealed the truth. There is a difference. Everything that happened to your mother after that night was a consequence of her own choices. I did not make her have an affair. I did not make her serve me divorce papers in public. I did not make Derek abandon her when things got hard." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "I always thought you were weak, Dad. Mom always said you were passive. That you let people walk all over you. That you did not have the backbone to stand up for yourself. And what do you think now?" He looked at me with something I had not seen in his eyes since he was a small boy. "Respect. I think you are the strongest person I have ever met. I think you played a game none of us even knew we were playing. And I think you won." Lucas stayed for 3 hours that afternoon. We talked about things we had never talked about before. His childhood. His memories. The moments he cherished and the moments he resented. The times he wished I had been there and the times he was grateful I was not. It was not a perfect conversation. There were awkward silences. There were things left unsaid. There were wounds that would take more than one afternoon to heal. But it was a start. When he finally stood up to leave, he hugged me. A real hug. The kind of hug I had not received from my son since he was 10 years old. "I want to do better, Dad," he said. "I want to know you. The real you. Not the version Mom told me about." "I would like that," I said. "Can I come back next weekend? Maybe we could work on something together. Like we used to when I was a kid." I felt a lump form in my throat. "I would like that very much." He smiled. A small, hesitant smile, but a real one. "See you next Saturday, Dad. See you next Saturday, son." Danielle's journey back to me was slower, but no less meaningful. She called every week, just like she promised. At first, the conversations were short and awkward. We talked about the weather, about her job, about Terrence and how their marriage was going. But over time, the conversations grew longer, deeper, more honest. She asked me questions about my childhood that she had never asked before. About my father, who died when she was only 4. About my mother, who was still alive and sharper than ever at 82. About my brother Eugene and the bond we shared. She asked me about my work. Not the surface-level questions she used to ask, like, "How was your day?" but real questions. How did I start the company? What were the hardest years? Who were the people who helped me along the way? She asked me about my marriage. About the early years when things were good. About the moment I realized things were changing. About how I felt when I discovered the affair. I answered every question honestly. I did not sugarcoat the past. I did not pretend I was a perfect husband or a perfect father. I told her the truth, even when the truth was uncomfortable. And slowly, something shifted between us. She started calling me not just out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. She started inviting me to dinner at her house. She started asking for my advice on things that mattered, not just things that were easy. She started seeing me as her father again. Not a function, not a resource, a father. About 6 months after the divorce, Danielle invited me over for Sunday dinner. When I arrived, I found Terrence in the backyard, struggling to assemble a new grill he had bought. Pieces were scattered everywhere. The instruction manual was crumpled on the ground. He looked like a man who was about to give up. "Need some help?" I asked. He looked up surprised. "Mr. Finch, I did not hear you come in. And yes, honestly, I am completely lost here." I walked over and picked up the instruction manual. I smoothed it out and studied the diagram. "You have got the burner assembly upside down," I said, "and the gas line is connected to the wrong port. Give me 20 minutes. Terrence stepped back and watched as I took apart what he had built and reassembled it correctly. By the time Danielle came outside with glasses of lemonade, the grill was finished, and I was showing Terrence how to adjust the heat settings. "Dad," Danielle said, "you did not have to do that. I wanted to." She smiled. A warm, genuine smile. "Thank you. You are welcome." That evening, we sat in their backyard and grilled steaks on the new grill. We talked and laughed and told stories. Terrence asked me about the construction industry. Danielle asked me about a trip I was planning to take. For the first time in years, I felt like I was part of a family. Not an outsider. Not a wallet. A member. It was a feeling I had almost forgotten. I should tell you what happened to Lorraine. After the divorce was finalized and she moved out of the house, she went to stay with her sister Patricia. That arrangement lasted about 3 months before Patricia asked her to leave. Apparently, Lorraine had not been contributing to household expenses and had been spending most of her time on the couch, watching television and feeling sorry for herself. From Patricia's house, she moved to a small apartment on the east side of the city. The same neighborhood where we had lived when we were first married. The same neighborhood we had worked so hard to escape. She got a job as a receptionist at a medical clinic. It was the same kind of job she had when I met her, almost 30 years earlier. The pay was modest. The hours were long. The work was unglamorous. I heard through mutual friends that she was struggling, not just financially, but emotionally. She had lost her marriage, her home, her lifestyle, and the man she thought she loved, all in the span of a few months. Part of me felt sorry for her. But a larger part of me knew that she had brought this on herself. Every choice she made, from the affair to the public humiliation to the refusal to settle reasonably, had led her to where she was now. I did not reach out to her. I did not offer help. I did not gloat or celebrate her downfall. I simply moved on. As for Derek Vaughn, his story had its own ending. About a year after my divorce, I heard that he had left the community center and moved to another city. Apparently, his reputation had taken a hit after word spread about his affair with a married woman. The nonprofit world is small, and people talk. I never saw him again. I never spoke to him. I never confronted him or threatened him or demanded an explanation. He was not worth my energy. Some men spend their lives chasing revenge against the people who wronged them. They let the anger consume them. They let the bitterness define them. They become prisoners of their own resentment. I refuse to be that kind of man. Derek Vaughn took something from me. But he did not take anything I could not rebuild. And in the end, he lost something too. He lost Lorraine, who genuinely loved him. He lost his reputation. He lost his standing in the community. He thought he was using her. But in the end, they used each other. And they both ended up with nothing. There is a certain justice in that. 2 years after my divorce, I sold a house in Maplewood Heights. It was not an easy decision. I had lived in that house for over 20 years. I had raised my children there. I had built a workshop in the garage. I had planted trees in the backyard and watched them grow tall. But the house was full of memories I no longer wanted to carry. Every room reminded me of something. The kitchen where Lorraine demanded renovations. The living room where she laughed at jokes I was not supposed to hear. The bedroom where she lay beside me while texting another man. I needed a fresh start. So I put the house on the market. It sold in 3 weeks for more than the asking price. The real estate market was hot, and a young family was eager to move into a good school district. I took the money and bought a smaller place. A 2-bedroom cottage on a quiet street near a lake. It had a big yard for gardening and a detached garage I could convert into a new workshop. It was simple, modest, perfect. I moved in on a sunny day in April. Lucas and Danielle helped me carry boxes. Terrence assembled the furniture. My mother came by with a casserole and a bottle of wine. That night, I sat on my new porch and watched the sun set over the water. I listened to the birds. I felt the breeze on my face. And I thought about my father. He died when I was 31. Heart attack. Gone in an instant. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to thank him for the lessons he taught me. But I remembered what he told me once a long time ago. Harold, a man who reacts in anger, gives away his power. A man who observes in silence keeps it. He was right. I had kept my power. I had observed in silence. And when the moment came, I had used that power to reclaim my life. I wish he could have seen it. I think he would have been proud. It has been 3 years since my 50th birthday party. 3 years since Lorraine handed me divorce papers in front of 63 people. 3 years since I opened the safe she never knew existed. 3 years since I walked out of that country club and started a new chapter of my life. A lot has changed since then. I am 53 years old now. My hair has more gray in it than it used to. My knees ache when the weather turns cold. I wake up earlier than I need to, not because I have somewhere to be, but because my body has forgotten how to sleep late. But I am happy. Not the loud, performative happiness that people post about on social media. Not the desperate, forced happiness of someone trying to convince themselves that everything is fine. Real happiness. The quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing who you are and being at peace with it. My company, Finch Electrical Solutions, is still thriving. We have expanded to 54 employees now. We opened a second office in Cincinnati last year. Our revenue has grown every year since I started keeping proper records. But I have stepped back from the day-to-day operations. I promoted my most trusted project manager, a man named Raymond Cross, to the position of Chief Operating Officer. He handles the contracts, the schedules, the client relationships. I still own the company. I still make the major decisions. But I no longer spend my days on job sites or in meetings. I spend my days living. I wake up when I want. I eat breakfast on my porch, watching the lake. I tend to my garden, which has become surprisingly important to me in these later years. I read books. I take walks. I visit my mother every Sunday for dinner, just like she asked. I have learned that there is more to life than work. It took me 50 years to figure that out. But I got there eventually. My relationship with Lucas has continued to grow. He comes to visit every few weeks now. Sometimes we work on projects in my workshop. Sometimes we just sit on the porch and talk. Sometimes we do not talk at all. We just exist in each other's presence, comfortable in the silence. He has changed a lot since that day. He showed up at my door asking for forgiveness. He got a new job. Better one. He stopped relying on his mother for money and started building his own life. He met a woman named Catherine, a teacher at an elementary school in Chicago. They have been together for about a year now, and I have a feeling it is serious. He introduced her to me last month. She was kind, intelligent, grounded. She looked at Lucas with genuine affection, not the calculated appraisal I used to see in Lorraine's eyes. After she left, Lucas asked me what I thought. I like her, I said. She seems real. She is Dad. She is the most real person I have ever met. Then hold on to her. Real is rare. He nodded slowly. I'm trying to be more like you, Dad. Patient. Observant. Not reacting to everything. Just watching and waiting for the right moment. I put my hand on his shoulder. You do not need to be like me, son. You just need to be like the best version of yourself. That is enough. Danielle and I have grown closer than I ever thought possible. She calls me twice a week now. Not out of obligation. Out of love. She tells me about her work, her marriage, her hopes for the future. Last spring, she told me she was pregnant. I cried when she told me. Right there on the phone. I did not try to hide it. Dad, are you okay? She asked. I am more than okay, I said. I'm going to be a grandfather. She laughed. You are. And I want you to be involved, Dad. Really involved. Not like before. Not on the outside looking in. I want my child to know their grandfather. The real you. I would like that more than anything. The baby was born in December. A boy. They named him Henry, after my father. The first time I held him, I felt something I had not felt in decades. A sense of continuity. A sense of purpose. A sense that everything I had been through, all the pain and the betrayal and the years of silent preparation had led me to this moment. This tiny human in my arms. This new life. This second chance. I looked at Danielle, and she was crying too. Thank you, Dad, she said. For what? For not giving up on us. For being here. For being you. I did not have words to respond. So I just held my grandson and let the tears fall. I should tell you where Lorraine is now. She is still in that apartment on the east side. Still working at the medical clinic. Still struggling to rebuild a life that she demolished with her own hands. I do not hate her anymore. For a long time, I thought I did. I thought the anger would never go away. I thought I would spend the rest of my life resenting her for what she did to me, to our children, to our family. But somewhere along the way, the anger faded. Not because she apologized. Not because she changed. Not because she earned my forgiveness. It faded because I realized that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Lorraine made her choices. She lived with the consequences. Her life is her own now, and it has nothing to do with me. I heard from Danielle that Lorraine has been asking about me, asking how I am doing, asking if I ever mention her. I do not. Not because I am trying to hurt her, but because there is nothing left to say. Our story ended the night I walked out of that country club. Everything since then has been epilogue. I wish her no harm. I hope she finds peace. I hope she learns from her mistakes and builds something meaningful with whatever years she has left. But I will not be part of it. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. I think a lot about the man I used to be. The young electrician with sawdust on his boots and dreams in his heart. The husband who thought love was enough to sustain a marriage. The father who believed that providing for his family was the same as being present for them. I was wrong about a lot of things. I was wrong to think that Lorraine would appreciate my sacrifices just because I made them. I was wrong to think that my children would understand my absence just because my intentions were good. I was wrong to think that silence was always strength and confrontation was always weakness. But I was right about one thing. I was right to wait. I was right to gather evidence instead of making accusations. I was right to prepare instead of panic. I was right to let Lorraine make the first move, to let her expose herself, to let her hand me the weapon I would use to defend myself. If I had confronted her the moment I suspected the affair, she would have denied it. She would have gaslit me. She would have turned the children against me even more than she already had. She would have painted me as the jealous, controlling husband who could not handle his wife having male friends. But by waiting, by documenting, by preparing, I ensured that when the truth finally came out, it was undeniable, irrefutable, impossible to spin. Patience is not passive. Patience is a strategy. And sometimes it is the most powerful strategy of all. I want to share something with you before I finish this story. A few months ago, I was cleaning out my workshop and I found a letter I had written to myself years earlier. The one I sealed in an envelope and stored in the safe. The one that said, "Open when it is time." I had forgotten about it. I sat down on my workbench and opened the envelope. The paper was yellowed. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were still legible. This is what I wrote to myself back when I was still in the middle of it all. Harold, if you are reading this, it means the moment has finally come. Whatever happened, however it happened, I want you to remember something. You are not weak. You are not foolish. You are not the man they think you are. You are a man who loved his family deeply enough to sacrifice for them, and smart enough to protect himself when that sacrifice was not returned. Do not let anyone make you feel ashamed of what you did. You played the long game. You kept your head. You survived. And now you are free. Go live the life you deserve. You have earned it. I read those words 3 times, and then I cried. Not because I was sad, but because the man who wrote that letter had no idea how right he would turn out to be. I was free. I was living the life I deserved. I had earned it. Every early morning, every late night, every moment of silence when I wanted to scream, every piece of evidence I collected, every time I bit my tongue and swallowed my pride, it was all worth it. If you are listening to this story, I want you to know something. I'm not special. I am not a genius. I am not a hero. I am just a man who refused to be a victim. I am a man who learned that the world does not reward the loudest voice in the room. It rewards the most prepared. I am a man who discovered that respect is not given freely. It is earned, and sometimes it has to be demanded. I am a man who figured out later than I should have that the people who claim to love you are not always the people who have your best interests at heart. And I am a man who decided that the second half of my life would be different from the first. Not bitter, not angry, not consumed by revenge, just different, better, mine. There is an old saying that I think about often. The best revenge is a life well lived. I used to think that was just something people said to make themselves feel better about being wronged. A consolation prize for people who could not fight back. But I understand it differently now. Living well is not about showing off to the people who hurt you. It is not about making them jealous or proving them wrong. Living well is about refusing to let them define you. It is about waking up every morning and choosing peace over resentment. It is about building something meaningful with the time you have left. It is about loving the people who deserve your love and letting go of the people who do not. Lorraine tried to destroy me at my 50th birthday party. She failed. Not because I outsmarted her, although I did. Not because I had better lawyers, although I did. Not because I had more money, although I did. She failed because she underestimated me. She thought I was simple, ordinary, predictable. She thought I would crumble when she pushed. She was wrong. I'm going to end this story the same way I end every day now. Sitting on my porch, watching the sun set over the lake, listening to the birds, feeling grateful for the peace I have found. My grandson Henry is asleep in the guest room. Lucas and Catherine are coming for dinner next weekend. Danielle and Terrence are planning a family vacation this summer, and they have asked me to come along. My mother is healthy. My brother is happy. My company is successful. And I am free. Free from a marriage that was slowly killing me. Free from a wife who saw me as a means to an end. Free from children who had been taught to dismiss me. Free from the weight of pretending that everything was fine when it was not. I spent the first 50 years of my life building a life for other people. I am spending the rest of it building a life for myself. Before I go, I want to leave you with one final thought. If you are in a situation like the one I was in, if you are feeling invisible in your own home, if you are being disrespected by the people who are supposed to love you, if you're watching someone you trust to betray you in slow motion, I want you to know something. You have options. You do not have to confront them in anger. You do not have to beg for their respect. You do not have to accept the story they are telling about you. You can be patient. You can be strategic. You can gather your evidence and build your case and wait for the right moment. And when that moment comes, you can stand in front of everyone who underestimated you and show them exactly who you are. Not with shouting, not with threats, not with violence, with truth. Because truth is the most powerful weapon there is, and no one can take it away from you. My name is Harold Finch. I am 53 years old. I am a father, a grandfather, a business owner, and a survivor. I was betrayed by the woman I loved, dismissed by the children I raised, and humiliated in front of everyone I knew. And I am still standing. Not because I am stronger than anyone else, but because I refuse to give up. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me where you are watching from. Tell me if you have ever been through something similar. Tell me what you learned from it. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it with them. Because sometimes the thing that saves us is knowing that we are not alone. One more thing before I go. There is a saying my father used to tell me when I was young. I did not understand it then, but I understand it now. Quiet people are not weak. We are just choosing our battles carefully. I chose my battle, and I won. If this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We share stories like this every week. Stories about betrayal, patience, and the quiet strength it takes to reclaim your life. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, the truth always comes out in the end.